Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the Cowboy Chemist. And today we're going to be going over Harry Potter. Now, I got my magic wand. Are y'all ready? Now, see, I think any magic wand can be a defensive one if you hit somebody hard enough with it. Come here. Yeah, just like that right there. All right. So, Miss Rowling, you better get ready because I'm here to pick a fight. Number one, if you've ever read the books, Miss Rowling makes the statement that electronic devices won't work at Hogwarts. And I take high offense to that. Now, they really didn't touch on it in the movies, so if you only watch the movies, I'll forgive you. But yeah, no, that's totally not a thing. See, if light is still moving in and out, and you can still see things, and you haven't fallen to the center of the earth because of gravity, electromagnetism is still working. It's still a fundamental force of physics. So, yeah, about that. Also, your brain is an electronic device. It uses electronic signals. So, unless your brain just suddenly cut off there, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be affecting that too much. So, yeah, straight off the bat, I'm giving her an F for that one. All right, now this is for a science grade, granted. And we're going to kind of go through some of these other subjects, but I felt like I wanted to get that off my chest first things first. Now, the next one up, we're talking about flying cars. Now, I'm sure some of you saw in there where Hagrid arrives at the very first movie and he's riding a flying motorcycle. And then later on in the second one, you've got Ron Weasley flying around in his dad's Ford Cortina, which, by the way, absolutely awesome choice. I will give her full credit for that. Believe it or not, that actually is working towards being a thing. Nikola Tesla at one point postulated that if you could create a large enough electromagnetic field, in other words, the wireless transmission of electricity, that you could design a vehicle that could move in a omnidirectional manner. So, who knows? Coming up pretty quick. Well, let's hope. So I gave her a B for that. The next one up is the invisibility cloak. Now, Harry gets that, I believe, in the second movie. Or the first one. I can't really remember which exactly. Anyways, and he puts it on and then he goes invisible. Now, as far as science goes, it's pretty far out there. Now, if you could turn every light wave out of phase in that particular wavelength, maybe you could accomplish that, but putting that into a cloth is pretty far-fetched. So I gave her a C for that. Next up, if you remember in the Chamber of Secrets, you had Ginny Weasley, or Jenny, based on however you want to say that. She had a self-writing diary. Now, I'm sure you have all seen in the headlines here these days, we've got AI and ChatGPT and all sorts of other things that are working towards being what may be semi-conscious. So, the idea of a self-writing diary, not too far out there. I'd give it a B. Now, later on in book 3, or movie 3, you have the issue of time travel. Now, some of y'all might think, well, that's more like science fiction, but believe it or not, it's not as far out there as you think. You see, entropy is time's arrow. So entropy is the propensity towards disorder. It's an energetic force that makes sure that things go to their lowest energy state possible. Now, if you could somehow obviate that, then technically speaking, since all other forces are scalar forces, you could move backwards and forwards in time. So for that one, I gave her a C. It's possible, but kind of out there. All right. Next one up, teleportation. Now, you saw them use port keys, what they call those, or kind of almost the beam me up Scotty. You know, you would have them pop up in different odd places through disapparition, I believe is what she called it. Teleportation is another one of those that, while it sounds like science fiction, it's actually not entirely impossible. If you could know the quantum state of every single subatomic particle in your body at any one given time, and then disassemble it and then reassemble it at another point in exactly the same fashion, then you could teleport yourself back and forth between places. However, that does lead to a problem. If you got just one wrong, then would you be you, or would you be a different person and then you just killed yourself and now somebody else is living in your body? So all sorts of interesting conundrums there. One of the other things that she brought up was the draught of living death. Snape was big on that one. And the idea being that it just puts you in a torporous state that you can't know or feel anything. Well, believe it or not, that is a real deal. If ever you've ever seen a blue ring octopus from the Southeast Pacific, or a pufferfish, then they carry something called tetrodotoxin. And that is a substance that will, for all intents and purposes, paralyze you. You're alive, but you can't let anybody know it. You're basically stuck. If you want to see it in action, check out the A-Team. Liam Neeson does a pretty good job with that. Anyway, moving on. Next, she has next one. The next ones that I picked anyway was collecting spider venom. By the way, the other one got an A too for the draught of living death. That's absolutely good science. I appreciate that. Now, collecting spider venom, that's absolutely a thing. We do that for all kinds of reasons. Maybe one of the first ones is we always try to make new medicines out of poisons. Most medicines started out that way. You just try to dilute or to dial it back and see what kind of effects it has, or you want to make a anti-venom out of it. One of the next things in her books that I kind of picked was phasing through glass. If you remember the very first movie, you've got Harry's older stepbrother that's always kind of bullying him. All of a sudden, he passes through the glass and he's on the inside of the python enclosure, and Harry ain't, and the snake's now free. That's actually not terrible science. If you could move all of your particles 180 degrees out of phase with the ones in the wall, you would pass through it, because atoms are mainly empty space. For instance, if you put the nucleus of an atom on the 50-yard line of a football field, American football, by the way, then the nearest electron will probably be about half a mile away, give or take. So I'll give her a C for that, mainly because in the book, if I recall correctly, he actually made the glass disappear and then reappear. So I got to knock some points off for that. One of the last ones I had, and probably one of the favorite characters everybody has in the books, is Hagrid. I mean, if you want to talk about a good old boy, it's good old boy. Hagrid is it. Now he was supposed to be a half giant. I think his mom was a giant, his daddy wasn't in the book. Now that's not too bad. Gigantism actually does occur in the real world. If you've ever seen Andre the Giant from wrestling fame, there have been other people that have been throughout history where they've had enlarged pituitary glands and they grew to almost 8 feet tall, just to massive proportions. And I gave that an A. So overall, for a science grade, I'll give her a C or C plus. Hey y'all, we're going to do a quick advertisement break here. We're brought to you again by our sponsors, WH Tire Products, and their product Safer. It's their upholstery cleaner, sofa, auto, rug, all sorts of cloth, laundry booster, multi-surface cleaner, stain remover. You name it. It's pH balanced, eco-friendly, biodegradable, all the good things. And this quart right here would retail for about $19.99. And at least on the bottle, it's references. It'll say it'll make about 6 gallons for light cleaning if you poured this whole quart in there. Now, we recommend more like 1 to 4 or something like that for more heavy duty. But in reality, most people just kind of pour some in there, and here we go. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. Now, I tell y'all, I was eating some French fries a little earlier today, and I got the weirdest ketchup stain on my white T-shirt. I mean, it come out some kind of weird. And that's a lot of ketchup. So what we're going to do, we're going to dunk this down into our pot of clean water right here, and we're going to toss some Safer at it, and let's see how it comes out. So I'm going to lay that right there. We're going to give it a good splash of cleaner, something like that. Just a little extra for measure. Kind of switch that around a little. And then we're going to take our shirt and we're going to dump him in. We're going to try for a little bit of Billy Mays magic here. And I might have had that a little overfull. starting to go all over the place. And basically, I'm just kind of scrubbing it back and forth on itself, letting that cleaner work at it. And we'll see how it all turns out. But I expect it'll do pretty well. Which I don't know if y'all can see with that water right there. I mean, you can already see it just taking that out of there. Now, if you wanted to, you could have put this on there full strength and let it soak for a little bit and just see what it does there. Now, we're trying it on ketchup right now, but it also actually works really well for blood. But given the fact that I haven't injured or lacerated myself here lately, I'm not going to do that just for the purposes of science. So if y'all ever get any barbecue sauce on your white t-shirt, as the song says, or anything else, this safer right here might be what you need. And for more stronger set-in stains, like I say, you can let it soak overnight. Anything that you want. But so far, so good. Just in a little bit of scrubbing, we already got most of that out of there. And I'm sure if I gave it a little bit more, it'd come right on out the rest of the way. So if y'all need an extra good laundry booster, give Safer a try. Maybe. Now, if we're doing a science fiction grade, then we kind of come into some things. First up, you have Dumbledore and his Deluminator. That's a very neat tool if you could do that. Now, how in the world you would collect up all the light energy from a given area without creating a black hole, I don't know. But if you could create a miniature singularity that could pull in all the light from a given source, then maybe it's possible. So I gave him a C. Next item on the science fiction agenda, the Sorcerer's Stone. Now, people have been trying to find the Sorcerer's Stone for forever. The idea was that it was an object that could turn any metal into gold and produce an elixir that would give the creator everlasting life. And even Sir Isaac Newton at one point in time tried to find it or tried to create it through alchemy, and inadvertently created some principles of chemistry that we still use today. So you never know. That's one instance of mysticism becoming actual science. So how about that? My next item on there was the invisibility cloak again, because that's pretty much science fiction. I mean, the idea being that any one garment could do that. Now, here a few years ago, they had a Bond film that had a car, an Aston Martin, that they called The Vanish, that supposedly used little cameras to take a picture of what was going on, and then had screens on the outside of it that would project what was being seen, so that it would create the illusion of it being invisible. That's probably about the closest you could get. Now, if you could wear that as a cloak without dragging the ground because of the weight of it, I'd like to see that. Next item up, and that gets a C, by the way. Pulling a sword out of a hat. Now, compressing matter and then having it re-expand to its original shape and so on, that's pure science fiction. Now, Star Trek's talked about having miniature teleportation technology that they could miniaturize things down into small storage units through using the teleporters, and then re-enlarge it later on if they needed to. Hey, I'll give her credit for that. We'll call that a C. Next up, hippogriffs. Now, I'll give her full credit for that one. That was really good. I liked those a lot. If you look at her description of a hippogriff in the book and then what they did in the movie, they did a really good job of using comparative anatomy to come up with a plausible creature. You know, it looked like something that actually could maybe work. Now, Hopefully, it had hollow bones so it could actually fly, because anything that large with only that size wingspan would have to work awful hard to stay in the air, especially with somebody on their back. But hey, I gave him a B because that was very original. I liked that a lot. Um, Next item, the night bus. Now that I really like that just because of the characters and the Jamaican little head up there, kind of giving directions and stuff. That was great. But if you watched in the movies, you would see it would kind of bend space and time, moving around objects, and that's pure science fiction. That's awesome, and just the effect of it was great. It does have a little bit of basis in reality. If you could, in some way, travel faster than the speed of light, then you maybe could do that. We just haven't found it yet. For as far as we know, the speed of light is the universal speed limit. So that gets an A, though. I mean, that just great effects, great writing. Next up, the House of Black. Now, in the movie, they did a pretty good job of that. They had a house, two houses together, and then they moved apart, and then boom, right there in the middle, they have a new house that existed the whole time, but the other two houses could not interact with it. Well, that has a little bit of basis in some science. So, yeah, there's something called string theory out there as one of the competing theories of the fundamental forces of nature, the fundamental theory of everything, if you will. And that's given rise to something else called M theory, which is membrane theory. And the idea being there is that there can be multiple dimensions that can exist on top of one another or next to one another in any given space, and them not be aware, mainly because everything's out of phase. So, possible M theory application? Maybe so. But no one's ever been able to prove this or to perform an experiment that could indeed show any of it being in any way true. So that's why it winds up in science fiction. But we'll give it an A for that. Next up, telepathy. Now, in the books, she calls it legilimacy. But basically, Dumbledore and Voldemort and a lot of these higher powered fellas can actually sit there and look at you and read your mind. Telepathy's been around as a science fiction idea for quite some time. I mean, heck, they've been doing that since the black and white days. But that being said, it's still not a bad idea. And some people believe, since we only use about 15% of our brains, that maybe we could, if we could improve the amount that we use, reach out there and read each other's thoughts, maybe through the different magnetic fields that the electronic signals generate. Who knows? The next science fiction items I had, which I gave telepathy a B, was the luck potion. Now, I like that. I just do. I mean, the idea that, man, you can make your own luck, whip it up and give it a shot, and man, everything goes great. That would be spectacular. But I'm afraid everybody would be using it, so it would negate itself all across the board. But there was another show that was kind of a science fiction comedy called Red Dwarf. I highly recommend it. From Great Britain. Man, they said that luck was a virus and you caught it ever so often, and then your immune system killed it, and that's when you became unlucky again. and, which was great. I absolutely loved that as a science fiction item. Gave it an A. Next up, talking about potions, the Polyjuice potion, morphing yourself into somebody else. Now that's pure science fiction. There's no way in the world that would work. Genetics and everything else would have to have been obviated. But the idea that you could drink something and then voila, you're somebody else, terrific. We're going to give that an A. And the last item in science fiction, transferring your consciousness to a picture. Now, I really did like this one. This one has personal appeal, I think, to me and everybody else. If you could take a loved one and then create a painting or take a picture of them and someone in some way transfer their consciousness to that, what a thing that would be. Now, they really didn't show that as much in the movies, but in the books, Harry's able to interact with Dumbledore after he dies through his painting there in the headmaster's office. And Dumbledore's able to direct Snape a little bit, and kind of they can plot a little more on Voldemort through that item. And it's pure science fiction, but if you could do it, man, what a deal. That gets an A all day long. So overall science fiction, I'll give them a B. B plus. So, and some other overall items. I give Rowling a great amount of credit. She created a character you just love to hate. I mean, just this you cannot stand this person. And Dolores Umbridge, I mean, talk about child abusing, micromanaging, tyrannical, everything that we, especially as Americans, just hate. That's what this lady was, and I'm sure in Britain it's the same way too. And man, just A plus all day long. Great character. Uh, really gets you involved in the story. But I got news for her though. A lot of what she mentions in these books, um, you wind up you could do this with a smartphone these days, like the Remember Ball, sending messages by owl or having them pop up, you know, whatnot. The message is spelled out in fire. I mean, in the air, that kind of thing. I mean, the smartphone can do all those things and more these days. I mean, they're incredibly powerful tools. So magic, I don't know. I forget the guy who actually made the quote, but it is a pretty famous one from history that, any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. Which I think as you go along, that becomes more true. And that kind of leads us into the next point. Everything's old fashioned. I mean, you see candles and torches and, knights and axes and, all these other things. And you don't see any of the modern conveniences, but we're using magic to do it with instead. Well, I hate to break it to you, a lot of the modern conveniences are better than the magic, just frankly. But, okay, could you use magic to improve that? Maybe you could. We'll give that a B. One of my other pet peeves with Miss Rowling, bless her heart. Now I know in Britain they turned into a bunch of pussies and gave up their guns. Um, yeah, the killing curse. You got a Avada Kedavra and boom, you done killed somebody. Yeah, you doing that versus somebody with a pistol. I hate to break it to you, you're gonna lose just about every time if they know what they're doing. Um, modern technology being what it is, there's just no way unless you got the drop on them that would work. So I gave that a D. And that kind of leads us into another point. Why doesn't anybody know about this magical world in the modern age of satellites that can see down to a square inch on the Earth? You got thermal, infrared, ultraviolet radiation scanners that can do the same thing. Smartphones. Everybody's got a camera in their pocket these days. Somebody appears or disappears, it's going to be on Twitter or YouTube, or I guess it's X now, Facebook, you name it, Instagram. I'm sure I'm missing some of them. It would be there in no time flat, and everybody would know about it. So the idea that you keep that secret, I just don't see it. And even if you allowed for the idea that you would have some guys out there trying to chase these folks down or change their memories or whatever, the information propagates much too quickly in order to do that. So yeah, I give that a C. Now that is with the caveat that this is written in the late 80s, early 90s, at least in its initial phase. So the technology at the time couldn't account for what's come about these days. So maybe we'll give her a pass on that a little bit. Yeah, and that's pretty much leads up to my last one, and probably one of my bigger pet peeves with her. Muggles, like us normal folk, would be helpless. No, not at all. I hate to break it to you, but in the magical world, you have flames and you have all sort, the killing curse and the Cruciatus curse. You can torture somebody or you can kind of mess with their minds or whatever. You don't understand. Modern militaries these days have hot death in a variety of exciting flavors. You can you just take your pick. Flying objects, no problem. We've got Patriot, THAAD, HIMARS, all sorts of things that can engage those things. Stinger missiles, all sorts of targeting pods for it. Infantry weapons, tanks, aircraft, any of the above. and a lot of the strategies and the things that you see in the books just would be completely ineffective against any of these. I'm not saying they couldn't do some damage, but I'm saying, especially here in the U.S., much less like any other greater power like Britain or Russia or China, anywhere else, it would not fly. I mean, there's no way. So I give her a D for that one. But overall, hey, we'll give it a C plus B. I mean, hey, it's an exceptional work of fiction. I got a kick out of it. So hey, next chance you get, go down to your local library, check out the books, give it a read, see what you think. Hit me up in the comment section, and like and subscribe to our channel if you like this video. Give me your thoughts on what you think was either good or bad about the books or the videos, if you like those better. And you'll catch y'all on the next one. That's all right. I'll kill it here.